Morning. Yeah, I think we're live on this. I think I need to adjust. I may need to adjust this. Let's see. That might be right. Um, okay, so now we're back. Um, Monday morning, 8th of November. So just getting into November. Um, so yeah, I figure we're gonna start doing this again. Just because the weather's getting cooler and um, maybe it's a good thing to do um, on the days that I'm not at Garfield Park. So Monday, Wednesday, Friday, we'll give it a whirl. See how it goes. I was having some hardware issues, but I think we're uh, sorted out now. So fingers crossed. we'll still be here. Um, so so also, if you have been coming to Garfield Park, we might be changing the room that we're doing it in. Um, we'll talk about that and see what people think. Uh, they want to do line dancing in the room next to us at the same time, which I understand will be very loud. So um, we may move into, I guess, what used to be the computer room, which is smaller and more is carpeted, which might be good, or people might not like it because it's a smaller room. I don't really know. We're gonna check it out and see. But that's about it for news from that. Um, so let's talk about. Well, I don't know. Let's talk about. Well, let's talk about consistency today because this is something I've noticed that um, one of the reasons I like to teach this class is because it keeps me consistent with my practice. Um, I find that when I am not um, required to come to the mat, to come to um, practice in one form or another on a pretty regular basis, I tend to put it off. I have other things I need to do. I think, well, I'll do it later, like how that happens. And then of course later never comes because there's always a later, right? uh, later putting things off to later only works if later transitions to now um, at some point. But that's the problem, is that a lot of times it doesn't, right? It just continually, you're just always looking for that later bit. So um, for my own practice and my own um, consistency, being able to do this on a daily basis is helpful. Um, as we know, the things that we are consistent with are the things that we accomplish. When we do things haphazardly, when we, um, get super um, enthusiastic about something, right, and really go all in for a short period of time, things tend to fall apart. Um, it only works for a little while. We are unable to maintain that level of interest and um, I guess enthusiasm, really. Um, and so then we stop, right? So what consistency does is consistency doesn't ask you to be enthusiastic. You don't have to love it. You don't have to feel transported and excited about every practice or every um, whatever it is that you're trying to accomplish, right? Every session, every time that you sit down to work on whatever it is that you are trying to accomplish. Um, In fact, it almost requires that you don't feel that way, right? Because if you're waiting uh, to only do things when you feel moved to really get excited about it, chances are you will never do what it is you want to do. Or you'll do it so erratically that it's just as good as not doing it at all, right? Um, I find that we are the agents of our own enthusiasm, right? We are enthusiastic about things because we encourage ourselves to be so, because um, I mean, sometimes it's the process itself that causes the enthusiasm, right? You might not be in the mood to do whatever it is that you are doing, but once you get there and you start doing it and you see the progress maybe that you have accomplished or um, something, right? There's something there that then sparks that interest a little more and you keep going. Um, Expecting us to maintain this on our own, kind of separate from what we're trying to do, is perhaps an unrealistic goal. Um, we we then can berate ourselves for that because we can't even stay enthusiastic about this goal that we've set, right? Just one more thing to feel inadequate about. Um, Instead, let that process be the guide, right? Set your schedule and make that the discipline, right? We talk about this in yoga a lot, this idea that it's the discipline of the practice that makes it. The discipline of coming to the mat. Now, there's no requirement what you actually must do when you get there, um, but you got to get there, right? That's the goal. I just picked up a book that I'd heard about kind of for years, a real basic book of really basic asana, pranayama, and different yoga practices. And it's a very good book. It's pretty comprehensive. But I found myself paging through it, looking for a practice, right? Looking for because normally when you get these type of books, they'll have some examples and demonstrations of different things, and then at the end they'll have a practice put together for you. Okay, so do this, do that, this and this and this and this. And this book didn't have that at all. And I was like, well, that's what am I supposed to do then, right? And then I realized, well, I mean, what you're supposed to do is what you need to do, right? So the way the book was set up, it had the asana broken down into groups, different groups, which is kind of what I do when I'm putting together a class. I know the different groups that each asana is from, and I know what I want to work on, or most generally working on kind of just a broad little bit of everything, right? Try to get through all the different movements, the back bending and the front bending and the side bending, twisting, all of these things. Um, so I appreciated that again, it's not telling you, okay, you need to do this, this, and this. It's saying, here they are. You pick, right? And this is our practice, right? This is what I try to offer in a class. Here it is. You pick. What are you going to do? Are you going to do it all? Maybe. Going to do some? Maybe. How long? You're going to hold it as long as I'm holding it, or are you going to do less? Or are you going to do more? I don't know. Um, you pick. And again, this is how we get there. And we get there safely. We get there in a way that is sustainable, that is healthy for your body. You don't feel overwhelmed. You don't feel um, ill at ease, right? Um, what I also liked about this book is it had a real good explanation, I think, of the process. That again, when you first start, there are poses that are more appropriate for you when you're in an intermediate level, which is really, I think pretty much anyone who's ever taken my class is intermediate level because you've done some poses, right? Beginner is really if you've never done anything at all. Um, that's a much wider range, right? And I think most people are somewhere in the intermediate range. There are advanced practices, but advanced practices aren't they really aren't meant for everybody. They aren't meant for every body type. They simply won't work for many people, given their flexibility at this point in time. It doesn't mean that you couldn't get there if you wanted to, but that is in itself a separate sort of goal. Um, some people, right? We have to be very clear to separate asana from yoga practice. Asana is part of yoga practice, but getting to advanced asana is not part of yoga practice. It could be part of your practice if that's what your goal is, but it does not need to be. You could be very advanced in your yoga practice and doing very simple asana or maybe no asana at all. Asana is helpful um, for a lot of things, right? But even asana is not required in a yoga practice. Um, it's I hesitate to say short. It's that it's a shortcut, but it kind of is. Like it's what they consider a preparatory step, and in that sense, it helps us to advance in our practice more than say just random stretching or something like that might. Um, but again, it's not required, right? And that's why I think So in reading books by some sort of advanced practitioners, their take on it is that basically as they got more and more uh, dedicated to their yoga practice, in terms of like the meditation and that sort of thing, they let go of a lot of the asana because it wasn't necessary, right? It wasn't as necessary. They did not feel it to be as necessary for their practice as it once was. So that's kind of funny, right? Because that's not what we would think. What we might think is that the more advanced you are as a yoga practitioner, the more complicated and convoluted your poses would be, the more headstands you do or inversions or, you know, really pretzel-y type shapes with your body. But we find that to not be the case at all. So I guess that's really to just say whatever you end up doing with your practice is okay. It's appropriate. If you feel like you've got some physical limitations to your practice, that is not at all an impediment I should say, if you have physical impediments to your asana practice, that is not at all an impediment to your overall yoga practice. Um, and it's important to know this, right? Um, one thing we do with yoga practice is there's a fair amount of repetition in the pose. In the asana, we do a lot of the same asana over and over again. We might mix up how we put it together, but essentially we hit a lot of the same things over and over. And there is some sometimes people feel like, well, I want to advance. I want to do more things. I want to mix it up or whatever, do something bigger or better or something. Um, but this is all part of the practice, right? Part of the practice is being comfortable where you are, not constantly feeling um, that you need more and more and more, right? Um, you can be where you are. You can be comfortable with where you are, um, and work on that. Um, we don't always need more. We don't always need something new. Um, there is a discipline to staying in the place where you are and working to perfect that, or to find the ease in that place without needing a distraction, right? Or something else to take your mind off what you're doing, right? This is a hard thing, right? We talk about this in class a lot, keeping that focus. Not um, so if you think about other physical practices like, say jogging or running or working out at the gym, people are listening to music, people are doing things to they're watching TV, as they're on the treadmill. They're trying to do something to take their mind away from what they're doing, right? Because it's boring, right? They don't want to. Um, they want to think about something else than what they're doing. Um, Yoga asks you to not do that. It asks you to stay and be bored. Sit with that boredom. Um, Experience it. See it for what it is, and know that it's just that. It's just that moment in time. Um, we're building that resilience in the body and in the mind. And the resilience comes when we realize that we don't need to be distracted, when we don't need um, to stop being here and present. It's a habit, right? This idea that we need to be distracted, that we need things to stop us from thinking about what's happening right now. Um, it's a bad habit, right? You know that you've seen people, and I'm sure you know people who watch TV, read a book, try to talk to their friend. I mean, they're doing, three things at once, and they're doing none of them very well. Um, Multitasking is a bad idea. Um, you don't, people think that they're getting stuff done, but I mean, study after study tells us that they aren't. They're doing a poor job of everything as their attention is split in those ways. So, yoga is coming back to this single minded focus. And it's showing us what we can accomplish with that. Um, that there is um, there's no reason to be distracted. There is no problem with being um, bored, right? I mean, stillness and quiet, these are good things. These are things that um, feed us, that actually give us more energy. The noise, the chaos, the three things going at once, these are the things that drain us, that take away our energy. Um, they cause these kind of short circuits in the brain, that keep us from really being able to deeply focus on something. And it's important, right? It's important to have that skill, to have that ability. And I think, as we become a more sort of digital society, electronic, everything online, everything in these short little bites, the TikTok world and the Snapchat, and, you know, people people's attention spans have shortened. Um, and we want to change that. We want to go back to a time when we could have a solid focus and uh, not be distracted constantly by other things. Um, yeah. It's funny because yoga by nature, I think, is very contrary, even though we're doing this, right? We're doing this online. Here we are. But yet yoga itself is very, uh, you know, it's a very physical practice. So it is not, um, it's an embodiment, right? It's in your body. So this idea that, all this digital stuff and online stuff is kind of, not great. It's not really what we conducive to your practice, I would say. But like many things, we need to pick and choose, right? What works, what helps, and what is actually, not helpful. So you may find a lot of online things related to yoga that can be helpful, and other things that are harmful or really, counterproductive for you. So um, just use your best judgment with that and see how it turns out. All right. So let's move around a little bit today. I'm feeling, mm, I don't know, I'm feeling stiff and tight today. The whole weekend was like that. I'm not really sure what that was about, but I'm still feeling it today. So there you go. Let's do a little Agni Sara today. I've been thinking about Agni Sara, and it's a nice practice. Maybe because the heat was on today. It actually isn't too cold in here, but the radiator is right underneath where the laptop is. So when I come in, I'm sort of touching the radiator, and it's definitely warm today. So, all right, so we're sitting up and breathe. Just relaxing the body. Relaxing through the chest and the belly, letting your body expand with the breath. And then when we start with kind of this movement for Agni Sara, we're just going to do like a mild version of it, right? Because again, if you haven't been practicing this, pretty consistently, right? Getting back to consistency, it can be difficult, right? You don't really feel like you have maybe a lot of control over the area, and um, it's tiring. So we want to just work our way up to it. So I know we've talked about the bandhas before. Bandhas we call locks, right? Locks in the body, places where we hold the energy in. And part of the practice as you move on with asana is to incorporate some of these locks into the movement. So we've got Mulabanda, which is the root lock, which is the perineal region where we kind of are squeezing, right? So we also call them like the bathroom muscles, right? So squeezing like you're cutting off, if you're urinating and then you're going to stop. That's the motion of Mulabanda, right? Tightening that. Uddiyana Bandha is here in the diaphragm area, right? So this tightness in here, if we're kind of pulling in, Jalandhara Bandha is this sort of throat area. So as we kind of pulling back and tightening through here, lowering the chin a little bit, right? Those are the three, right? And then we're not going to worry about that. We're worry about Mulabanda for Agni Sara. So Agni Sara is to fire up that internal heat for digestion, for that whole process, right? Not just food digestion, but all digestion. We talk about this Agni, this sort of fire. None of the words that we use really are very good, I think, for explaining this. We talk about how it's kind of like I can't think of the word now. Oh, metabolism, right? Kind of like metabolism. That's probably the closest term that we would have. But because we don't talk about our body in the same way Eastern medicine does, right? We don't talk about our body in terms of energy and all of this. We talk about it in terms of metabolic functions, like strictly very physical processes in the body. But in Eastern medicine, those physical processes are pretty inextricably tied to energetic processes. So this idea of Agni is not just, there's a physical process happening in my stomach that is causing me to digest food, and then it moves through the intestines and then is eliminated, right? It's not just that, it's also the energetic form of digestion with this. So the idea that everything we take in, we are digesting. We're digesting information. We're digesting emotions, right? Energy from that we take or are bombarded with from other people. All of this becomes part of our digestive process. Right? And we all of us know this to be true, right? We do not exist unless you live up on a hill somewhere all by yourself. You don't exist in a vacuum. You can go somewhere and be exposed to some behavior or interaction with somebody, and it changes how you feel, right? It can make you angry. It could make you sad. You could just absorb that sort of feeling from other people and other situations. You could be in a really scary situation. That's going to change how your digestion is functioning right then. I know for me, when I'm upset, when I'm going through something traumatic or scary or even just highly emotional, ooh, my stomach is done. Like I just stop. Like if I eat, it's like a rock in my stomach and it'll just sit there. It's like for me, that shuts my digestion off as soon as that sort of stuff happens. And I know that about myself. So, I know if those things are happening, don't eat because you're going to suffer later. So Agni is more than just digestion. If you are having, obviously, digestion problems, working on that Agni is important. And I mean anything. So it could be, constipation or indigestion or IBS, any of those things where just it's not functioning properly, right? We're trying to get it back to functioning properly, and working on the Agni can help with that. But also, like people who feel like they are having trouble remembering things, learning things, right? They are not digesting the information properly, right? That's another thing Agni, working on the Agni can help with. Um, People that are highly anxious, right? People that are really easily upset by other people's emotions, by events, by things that they read or whatever. Very highly sensitive people. Work on the Agni, right? Agni helps us interact, right, with our environment. What we're taking in is digested when the Agni is working properly. So, you know, this is what we do. Agni Sara is a good process for that. Also, all of the other things, right? Eating well, getting rest. These are all important. Um, but and what help, these things are what damage the Agni, right? So if you think about it, it's in terms of fire. I mean, obviously it's not really a fire, right? But in terms of that, what, so what helps a fire? Oxygen, right? So breathing, deep breathing practices, they will help bring that fire up, right? And it makes sense. If you're feeling anxious or upset, you're not handling your environment well, breathe. Bring that heat up in the body. Um, what else? Well, bad food, right? So that kills the Agni, right? The kind of non-food that we eat. So if you think about a lot of the food that we eat, it's not even really food. Some of the stuff, this highly processed food, it's not, there's like nothing there. There's no nutrition. So it's like dumping dirt on a fire. There's nothing really for your body to digest because there's no real nutrition in what you're eating. So you eating a lot of junk food, that Agni is going to just go right down the tubes. Um, if you think about things that um, you can do, and so here's another thing. What about water? So people are like, well, what about water? Will water put out the fire? I mean, no, because water is an essential part of your body. Your body needs water, but cold water is going to bring the heat down to some extent, which in the summer might not be so bad, right? Because um, if we're doing all of these good things and that Agni's burning high, come summertime, you could be a little overheated, right? Um, so in the summer, maybe a little cold water would be helpful. But in as we're getting now into this colder weather, um, about ice cold drinks, ice cold food, maybe not the best choice. But you can let your body be the guide on that, right? It'll let you know if you're eating um, things that aren't good for you. I noticed that like ice cream, not good for me. It chills everything down, gums everything up. Not good stuff. That doesn't mean I don't eat it now. And then, but I know I eat it knowing I'm going to suffer, and that's how that is. But um, yeah, so there are lots of things we can do to improve the Agni. But this is, Agni Sara is a really direct way to work on that. So not only to bring up the fire and to prime the digestion, but um, it's also a really good way to sort of move through the body if you have any weakness in the core, right? So it's a direct way to kind of move that and to also kind of massage the body parts. Um, a lot of times, we have a lot of stagnation in this body. we're moving all of the other parts of our body, but then you have this area in your abdomen where all of these internal organs are, and it's very stationary, right? We're not really moving, maybe to a twist, right? Twists are good. Twists kind of squeeze things out, but you can think of Agni Sara as kind of a massage. It's like a massage for your internal organs, which is good. It's very helpful to do that. Our body likes movement. It likes gentle movement, right? Not rough movement, but gentle movement through the internal organs is a great thing. So we start with Mulabanda, which is when we are engaging down in this perineal area. Right? So you can kind of do that a few times. Right? If you've ever done like Kegel exercises, the same kind of thing, right? So we're engaging that. And as we start to engage there, we can draw that further up, coming up through the lower belly, up, maybe way up to here. And then relax again. Going kind of back the same way you came. So it starts at the bottom and goes up and then lowers back down, right? So the Mulabandha is the first thing we engage and the last thing we release. And the breath on this is an exhale, right? So that may or may not be intuitive to you. I think for some reason I always felt more like I was like, I started to take in the breath, right? As I was doing this, I was like holding the breath, but that's not really what you want to do. You want to be exhaling as you are going through this. And it makes sense if you think about it, because we don't want to fill up this whole lung area while we're trying to compress this lower area, right? You're trying to compress this, but this is also filling up. You're going to be pressing against. So the diaphragm's trying to come up, but it's also trying to be pushed down by that inhale of breath. So we don't want that. It just will be counterproductive, right? So you might take a deep breath before you start. And then as you engage Mulabandha, we're beginning to exhale. And then as you're releasing, we're going to start the inhale. And that's helpful because you can think about it, sort of visualize it in your mind. As you are releasing the diaphragm, you're bringing the air in, which is then pushing the diaphragm down, and we're releasing everything again, right? So let's do that. We can do maybe, I don't know, like 5 or 10. See how you feel. It can be very tiring if you've never really done this before. Maybe 10 is too much. I don't know. It doesn't have to be an intense process. If you don't feel like you have a lot of control over the muscles there just yet, then make it a very subtle, make it a subtle movement. Think about cat-cow, how sometimes when we begin with cat-cow, it's just a little movement. We're just going up and down and up and down. And then maybe we're doing a big one, right? But we're good, think about it as starting. That's fine, just a little movement. Maybe that's all it is today. It's no big deal. And then just coming back to regular breath. I forgot, of course, to mention the most important thing is you want to do this on an empty stomach, right? Um, it's a great practice. And how do you feel now? I feel a little heated up, and you may as well. So, right, we're bringing up this fire, and it's going to help heat the whole body. So this is an excellent practice for the winter. It's really nice. If you're feeling cold or a little, we're just feeling a little run down, help kind of rev things up. It's also a very good practice before a meal. So if you are getting ready to sort of, like if you haven't eaten all that much, in the morning, um, and you're getting ready to eat, a good way to kind of start the day is to do a little bit of Agni Sara a little bit before you decide it's time to break your fast, to eat your breakfast or whatever. Um, it will just, kind of prime your digestion to sort of manage that. Um, One of the things that we talk a lot about in Ayurveda and traditional sort of yoga lifestyle practice is this idea of a fast, a nice long fast in your day, and um, generally overnight for most of us is the right time for that. So the idea being, you want at least 12 hours, maybe more. Um, you know, the the more the better, right? For most people, uh, we take in way too much food. And these longer stretches give your body a chance to digest, to do a lot of the housekeeping that your body needs to do to keep you healthy, right? So when you're asleep, there's a lot of these functions going on, cleaning up, the bad cells and the things that are, just hanging around there that aren't good, getting rid of, uh, you know, fighting illnesses, fighting viruses or bacteria that have gotten into your body. All of these processes happen best at night when you're asleep. Um, it is, really housekeeping is the best way that I have heard it described. Um, it isn't huge, big things. It's just the little stuff that your body needs to take care of. And if it's able to take care of that on a daily basis, then you never have these big problems, just like housekeeping, right? Consistently. If you can consistently sweep your floor, it never gets out of control. Um, consistently put things away, you don't get big piles of stuff on your table. Um, and it's simple, right? It's a real simple thing. It's this idea that you eat your dinner and then you don't eat anything until breakfast the next day, or maybe not even breakfast. For some of us, especially if you are carrying some extra flesh, as they say, you don't maybe need that breakfast. Maybe you could extend that fast a little bit more and go for kind of a early lunch, um, or even just a regular lunch. All of these things are possible. Just see how you feel. Um, we want to, the other thing is, you want at least like 4 hours between meals. Right? 4 hours between meals gives you time to digest the food that you're given. Um, Food digestion, that process is it's a very big process for the body. It takes a lot of energy. It takes a lot of attention. So I know, this is kind of a common thing in our modern society, this idea of snacking, this idea of eating little meals throughout the day. Maybe instead of having one, sitting down to a regular meal, we just have little snacks all throughout the day. Well, Ayurvedically speaking, this is a really bad idea because you are asking the body to stay on digestion process all day long, which does not allow it to do other things. It doesn't really ever finish one process. You're constantly doing more, right? Um, and if you think about Agni and this, Um, people are like, well, aren't you just feeding the flame? I mean, yeah, you are, but depending on how your flame is doing, you might also just be smothering that flame. Um, for someone who is in peak physical condition, um, or think of children, right? Children's Agni burns so hot and so um, most children, right? A healthy, solid child, who's just doing their thing. Generally speaking, that Agni is burning high. They can eat, and they need to eat a lot and frequently. Um, but for most of us, we're not like that anymore, right? We're grown. We aren't still growing. We are in this status, right? We're stasis, let's say. We're at this place where um, we're just holding the line. And for a lot of us, our Agni is not so high, right? We've got some chronic issues. Maybe we haven't been getting enough sleep. We're not taking good care of our body. We're struggling a little bit. um, you can't just dump a lot of stuff in there and hope that it's going to be okay. You can, you're not going to put the fire out, right? You've got that fire as long as you're alive, but you're going to knock it down so that, you end up not feeling well at all. So, with all of these things, experience is going to be your best guide. If you know that a certain thing works for you, then do it. If you know it doesn't, stop doing it. Stop having that ice cream. No, but you know, understand that not everything is going to work for every person. You're going to read stuff on the internet. You're going to be like, oh, I'll try that. Well, I mean, try it. Maybe it will help you. But if it doesn't, don't be disappointed or surprised. Not every single process, every single way of doing things is going to work for everybody. Um, you have a specific set of circumstances in your body, and the key is to figure out how to manage that. So that's, we can't figure that out um, until we try. So be open to trying some new things, trying some different things. Um, People I know are horrified by this idea of fasting. Right? But then when you say, well, but it's just basically sleeping, right? You eat your dinner, you go to sleep, and you get up. Uh, you know, how is that weird? It's not. That is literally how we generally did things uh, for thousands of years until, you know, different things came along to tell us that we needed to do things differently. Um, Midnight snacks and even things like dessert. I was reading something about how traditionally, right, and I can remember this as a kid, like we never had dessert. If we did, and if we did have dessert, it was right after dinner, like it was served with the dinner. And there is a lot of uh, research to say that this is, you know, this idea that eating your food together is a better idea. If you're going to have a cookie or something like that, eating it in conjunction with a meal is much better for your blood sugar and for your the stability of your body function than eating it all by itself a couple hours later. I mean, makes sense, but again, we've kind of disordered how we do things, um, thinking it doesn't matter, but in truth, it really does matter in a lot of cases. And um, I think we can see, how the results of this, right? I mean, we have like a huge obesity crisis in this country, kids really heavy, not able to do the things that they should be able to do, people getting diabetes, people having all of these issues. Um, Again, like I think it's a lot of it is because people don't know how they're supposed to be eating. They don't know what they're supposed to do. There's so many different voices out there telling you, and a lot of them just they don't think it matters. It doesn't matter. Just do this, do this, do this. I mean, I think we have some pretty clear evidence that it does matter how you do things, and you got to figure out which one is going to work for you. Um, you know, otherwise, people are ending up with serious health problems. So, um, figuring these things out, and being aware that, you know, older generations knew some things, right? They didn't, some of the things that they didn't, like, they don't really have an explanation for why they did them, but they were successful with them. They were a tradition, but the tradition started somewhere, right? It started somewhere with some knowledge, right? Um, that this is the right way to do things. This is the way that is most likely to be good for your body. So let's look back at that. Let's take that information in, and see if, this isn't going to help us long term more than, you know just doing whatever we feel like. Or I shouldn't even say whatever we feel like. I feel like a lot of what we do in terms of diet and exercise and stuff like that comes from desperation, right? We're either so unhappy with what we're doing, we're just going to try everything, or we're so rushed, we have no time. We're at the end of our, rope. Um, we're grabbing things to eat on the way to go here or there or the other place. We're in a we didn't plan ahead. We're in a hurry. We don't have many options, so we're just, you know um, none of these things are conducive to good health, right? So we need to get back to really making this a priority. Um, you know, as careful as we are about the things that, we put on our body, we should be that careful with the things we eat as well, put in our body. It's serious. It really does make a big difference to your health and your well-being. All right, so Agni Sara, it's good. It's a good thing. Um, we've kind of run out of time, but I think we're going to do um, some Shavasana, because why not? So um, just lie down on your mat, relax. Feel a steadiness in your body, in your breath. Notice any places where there might be tension or discomfort. Try to breathe into those areas. you're ready, moving side to side and making your way out to a seat. Let's bring hands together for a breath in and a breath out. Thank you for taking time for some yoga today and making your way to your mat. I hope that you have a very good Monday. Thank you. All right. So I'm not going to do meditation because we ran a little over here. I will be back. So be it Garfield Park Tuesday, Thursday, but I will be back here on Wednesday.